Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MtG Traders. My name is Taryn, and this is the red-green Fling deck for Dominaria Standard. So this deck is completely janky, but it's super fun to pilot, and I really wanted to show it on the channel today for you guys, and it's actually quite cheap as well. But before we get into it, of course, make sure to like the video if you like it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, it really does help us out a lot. And yeah, let's get right into it, guys, with the deck tech here. This is a Gruun the Lonely King deck, so it's going to have a lot of janky stuff in it. Lots of kickers, things like that. Starting with, of course, Landbase Elf, or Mana Ramper. A 1-mana 1/1 Elf Druid. Tap, add 1 or green to your mana pool, or add 1 green, I guess, for the card text now. Very good, very straightforward, and a complete 4F here. Another 4F that's actually going to be great for ramping as well is the Elfheim Druid. A 2-mana 0/2, so a good blocker, technically. Elf Druid, you can tap it to add 1 green to your mana pool, or tap it to add 2 green, spend this mana only to cast kick spells. So you're going to see here, since this is green-red, we have quite a few kick spells, or kickable spells, in the actual deck list here. Moving up to our 3-mana slot, we have Halar the Firefletcher, a 3-mana 3/3 legendary creature, Elf Archer, with Trample. And whenever you cast a spell, if that spell was kicked, put a +1/+1 counter on Halar the Firefletcher. Then Halar deals damage equal to the number of +1/+1 counters on each, or to each opponent. So the best thing I can kind of like describe for the actual kicker process here is that you're actually going to be able to like basically drain your opponent by just playing your spells, while also being able to use like Fling as a game ender near the end of the game. Not only that, but the Halar here, even if you be able to cast, one thing to be able to kick it, Halar turns into a 4/4, which is still a substantial threat on turn 4. It can be a substantial threat on turn 3 if we have enough, if we have the correct mana as well. But it's going to be, growing turn over turn each time we cast a kick spell, which is actually quite good for us. And once it hits 4 power, we can use things like Ronas the Untitled Healer here, a 3-mana 5/5 legendary creature god with Death Touch, indestructible, and it can't attack or block unless you control another creature with power 4 or greater. So as soon as Halar hits the first ability here to be a 4/4, Ronas is turned on naturally. We can also pay 3, and another target creature gets +2/+0 and gains trample until end of turn. The trample part there is actually really, really good as a great game ender as well. Another good game ender for us is actually Skizzik here. This is actually a card that was technically a rare for a long time, and it got downshifted in Dominaria to uncommon. This card is really good for just 4 mana, 5 mana if you kick it. It's a 5/3 trample with haste, and at the beginning of your instep, if it wasn't kicked, sacrifice it. So again, it's one of those things where you can basically just pay the 5 mana for it, especially because we have the Druid in our actual field here. So get this out really, really quickly, have it kicked, come in and do a counter on Halar, have an opponent lose some life to that, and of course have a 5/3 trample haster coming in attacking for face that turn. Very powerful, very straightforward. But of course our top in bomb here is the Grunn the Lonely King. Harambe looks great here. Is that too old of a meme? That's an old meme, right? Let's stay away from the old memes here. A 6-mana 5/5 legendary creature, Ape Warrior, with kicker for 3 colorless. If Grunn the Lonely King was kicked, it enters the battlefield with 5 +1/+1 counters on it. And whenever Gruun attacks alone, double its power and toughness until end of turn. So if it comes in kicked, it's actually a 10/10 attacking in for 20. And if we have a Fling in our hand, that's going to be basically game unless the opponent has a counter for Fling. If they do not, and we don't kick it, it's coming in for 10. We can still fling that to our opponent's face and do a ton of damage, as well as give it trample with Ronas. So it's a really good way to get in some extra damage against our opponent if they don't have anything to slow down Gruun the Lonely King. But that is all the creatures in the main board here, 24 in total. Let's go on to the spells here, which I kind of titled Protection and Burn, because we want to make sure our creatures are protected here. I have a full 4 Blossoming Defense, a 1 green mana instant. Target creature control gets +2/+2 and gains Hexproof until end of turn. So there is a Cast Down, there's Seal Away, there is Cast Out, there is Fatal Push. There's a bunch of different stuff in the format right now to hopefully deal with our creatures. We want to have Blossoming Defense in here as a complete 4F to hopefully kind of protect our creatures long enough to get in points for the game. Next up for us is our Game Ender card, Fling here, a full 4F because we really do need it that often. As an additional cost to cast Fling, sacrifice a creature. Fling deals damage equal to the sacrificed creature's power to target creature or player. So this is not going to go to a creature ever. This is always going to go to an opponent's face. Fling is going to be the way you win the game more often than not. Next up here we have another card this was actually slotted in for Invigorated Rampage first, because Invigorated Rampage does give trample, but I do like this card, especially because we have Halar in the actual deck list here. Gift of Growth, a 2-mana instant with kicker for 2, so 4 mana. Untap target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. If this spell was kicked, the creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn. This is actually not bad at all for us, as it can, you know, pump Halar. We can use the Druid to cast it for, you know, a little bit cheaper than normal, and it untaps a creature for us, so basically giving Gruun, like, you know, vigilance for a turn, and also it makes it strong enough to where, like, you could actually have a creature that can be flinged that turn without really having to kick Gruun, which is actually not bad either. I really do think that Gift of Growth in here is actually a very good inclusion to make sure that the actual kickers kind of go off on schedule. And the last 4 in here, of course, are just a 4 of Lightning Strike. We needed some way to, like, do some extra damage, and Lightning Strike is here for that. 2-mana instant, deals 3 damage to target creature or player, and that's going to go most likely to an opponent's face. And that is all the cards in here besides lands. We're going to go over lands really quickly. We, of course, have 6 forest and 6 mountain, then 3 Hashep Oasis to make our stuff a little bit larger, make our Skizik a little bit more impactful, having it 6 toughness, but coming in for 8 points of damage, which is ridiculous. And then 4 Rootbound Crag and 3 Sheltered Thicket. Didn't want to have too many tap lands, but if we do get into a lot of lands in the mid to late game, we can cycle these away, and that is just gravy for us. But that is the full Game 1 game plan. Let's go to the sideboard here and see what we can do for protection, or any kind of other thing. We have 1 Field of Ruin here to hopefully deal with a field flip land. We can tap it to add colors to our mana pool, pay 2, sacrifice it, destroy target non-basic land, and of course hunt for a basic land on our side of the field and their side of the field coming in untapped. Then we have 3 Abrade here. I did have Thrashing Brontodon in this slot here, but I do like Abrade a little bit more because it can do more actual damage to opponent's creatures, so that's nice for us. You know, again, it's a 2-mana instant, deal 3 damage to target creature, and destroy target artifact. 2 Crooked Combination. Again, we could do something else for this slot here for Graveyard Hate, like Scavenger Grounds. We could do that instead. I just still like Crooked Combination, and that's a card that, you know, a lot of people don't like. It's a little bit too slow for you, but I still like it in the list here. A little bit cheaper than getting a Scavenger Grounds if you want to go on the cheap end. 2-mana artifact. You can pay 1, tap and exile target card from a graveyard, or pay 1, exile Crooked Combination, exile all cards from all graveyards. So not terrible. And it can do, you know, as soon as a Scarab God goes to the graveyard on your opponent's side of the field, you can pay 1, tap this, and exile it, and that's nice. Next up for us, we have Fight with Fire. So I wanted to add another kicker spell in here, and I thought about doing the Allosaur, the new dinosaur that's in Dominaria, but I still think I want to go a little bit more janky and go with Fight with Fire here. A 3-mana sorcery with a kicker for 6, so it can be 9 mana if you want it to be. Fight with Fire deals 5 damage to target creature. If this spell was kicked, it deals 10 damage divided as you choose among any number of targets instead, and that includes your opponent's face or a planeswalker, and you can divide that however many times you want to. So if we see that we're going up against an opponent that doesn't really have any kind of protection against their life total, we may even board in Fight with Fire over maybe a Skizik or something like that in our main board to just kind of burn our opponent down to the ground for 10 mana in the mid to late game. Moving up here against Control, though, we actually have Prowling Sepoppered, or however you pronounce that. Every time I say it, I mispronounce it, so I just kind of gave up. A 3-mana 4/3 Cat Snake can't be countered, and creature spells you control can't be countered as well, which is nice. Does mean the Gruun's coming in uncountered and safely on the battlefield, hopefully not to die to a Vraska's Contempt. Next up here for some ground control, we have Sweltering Suns against the token-based strategies. A 3-mana sorcery, it deals 3 damage to each creature and cycling for 3 colorless. We're not going to cycle this most of the time if we bring this in, and it's going to go up against, you know, a Sapperling deck, a Fungus deck, or a Vampire deck, or maybe even that Hidden Stockpile deck that's still kind of kicking around. And the last 2 cards in here against Control, once again, is Carnage Tyrant, a 6-mana 7/6 with, you know, trample, hexproof, and it can't be countered. So just amazing against a control deck, and very, very good against a token-based strategy as well, because it does have trample, so that does mean they're going to have to kind of pile up all their tokens onto a single creature. But that is the full 75, guys. Let's go to the deck list here. On MtG Traders, this is coming to about 68 tickets, which is not bad at all. And if you want to build this in paper, it's coming to about 130 bucks, which again is not too terrible. Again, turn 1, turn 2, we want to go for Llanowar Elves into Halar or into the Druid. Turn 3, turn 4, go into Halar, Ronas, or maybe even Skizik, or maybe just another Druid to kind of ramp some more. And once you get into turn 3 or 4, you really will have your big bombs out like Skizik, maybe even have a Ronas out already, or a Gruun on the field as well the turn after that. Because we have so many legendary creatures in the actual main board here, I did kind of consider putting in Mox Amber, but I do think it's a little slow for what we're trying to do. Again, it can tap for red or green thanks to Halar there, which is actually nice if we get that out early, but it can just kind of muck up our actual deck list here. So if you did want to add it to the actual deck list, I think maybe replacing some lightning strikes, maybe 1 fling and like 2 strikes if you want to add 3 mox ambers to the actual deck list. I do think you want to definitely you know, experiment with that for sure. But if you do that, please let me know how that goes and report back. But that is the full deck tech, guys. Let me know what you think. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you have any suggestions for it? Please leave them in the comments down below. I didn't want this deck to be basically, you know, green-red energy with just Gruun at the top end. I didn't want that. I wanted to make a deck that's completely just for Gruun and for kickers and stuff like that. And I think I kind of succeeded here. But of course, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next week for more standard deck techs. Peace.